what trauma is not, because sometimes, for example, people call a painful experience traumatic, and that is not true, because every traumatic experience is painful, but not every painful experience is traumatic. And we often talk like this when we had something painful. We say in everyday language, oh, I had a big trauma, but actually trauma has some specific points when it becomes a trauma, where that has to be mean when we feel overwhelmed, and then we go into a kind of dissociation or freeze. And we have to understand that is a mechanism of coping with a situation. And it is quite helpful to understand, to recognize it, and to understand how to help oneself to come out of such a state. Otherwise, very often such states stay on for a long time. And many people, they are just chronically traumatized without even realizing it. Sometimes, you can see this in people also in public. For example, when you are disconnected from your feelings or your body, or you can't think straight, or things like this. These are all symptoms of trauma. And trauma is really part of human life. And we only in the last maybe few decades, people have really understood the importance of trauma and how to treat trauma in a specific way. And I'm especially interested in that also, not only for personal reasons, but also because I work a lot with family constellation. That family constellation, we also deal with trauma, but family constellation as such offers no specific concept how to understand trauma. For example, in family constellation, you don't get an explanation how to treat traumatized clients differently than other clients. You treat everybody in the same way. And sometimes this is not enough. Sometimes one has to understand how to treat traumatized clients in a different way than normal clients. And sometimes you have to do quite opposite things. And so there is still needed a kind of understanding for people who work with people, but also personally, because we often judge ourselves when we space out, when we say we space out, or when we dissociate, and then we try to be more here, or we try to be in the body, and that doesn't work. And even in groups, you sometimes, or in spiritual work, you tell people be in your body or be here. But with traumatized people, that doesn't work. That puts more pressure and leads actually to further dissociation or disintegration. And so to be a little bit more informed what trauma is and how to deal with it is quite helpful for people who work with people, but also personally for your life, because it is good to recognize when something becomes too much or overwhelming. One has to distinguish between a personal trauma, which is something that you personally experienced, and a collective trauma. Collective trauma means it didn't happen to you, but to somebody that is part of your systemic field. And it can be also something that happened not in the present time, but in a former time. So, and because of bonding, the bonding comes in here, we carry that, or we behave in that, we take on that trauma in our life and behave as if we have been traumatized. So, so it's good sometimes to work in a combination with the body and with the systemic field. So this is what we're going to investigate. And here we also will learn that bonding helps when one has a good relational field and one is able to bond to one's friends and family members. One can overcome trauma better.